As is the case just about every week inside the admin bar community, here recently somebody was asking for hosting recommendations. As I was scrolling through those comments, I saw a comment from Nick Gulick reminding me of a company that I haven't thought about in years. In fact, I checked my account history and it was almost 4 years ago that I first signed up for a trial with Wordify. I remember liking the dashboard and getting some pretty good results, but I was a little shy to put too much stock into them as they were a brand new company at that time. In fact, looking at my account, I think I was around one of their first 100 customers. Almost 4 years have passed since then, and I'm still not loving my current hosting setup, so I thought I would give them another shot. While I'm at it, I figured I might as well take you along for the ride so you can check out what it's like to use Wordify. In the process of making this video, I ended up connecting with one of the co-founders of Wordify, Nick. I asked him if there's any way I could score any kind of deal on Wordify for the people of the admin bar, and he agreed. So I have a coupon worth over $250 in savings on Wordify, but I'm going to save that for later in the video because I'd love for you to check out the platform first and see if it's a good fit for you. If you're curious what Wordify is all about, then stick around and let's get started. Wordify is a managed hosting provider that uses AWS and Google Cloud, and it has servers located in the US, UK, Germany, and Australia. The company itself, I believe, is based out of Australia. I'll let you browse the feature page on your own, but a few things I wanted to point out are their smart cache, security features, and free development sites. Beyond that, they offer a guaranteed 1-hour response to any support requests, which I will definitely be testing out later in this video. But before we sign up, let's take a look at the pricing. They have different offers, but all I'm really interested in is their agency or reseller plans, which are labeled WP Infinity. To host multiple sites, you can sign up for the Infinity plan, which includes 5 sites, 35K monthly visitors per site, and 5 gigabytes of SSD storage. After that, you just add $5 a month for every additional site. Now keep in mind, that doesn't include your development or staging sites, which you get on top of that for free. And I'm tempted to compare this with pricing of other managed hosting providers, but it's so difficult considering every host defines managed as something a little bit different, and none of the features are quite apples to apples. I do still have my original Wordify account, but I decided to create this burner account so we could start fresh and you could see the entire process. After providing your details, you're dropped right into the dashboard, no credit card required. Just need to confirm my email address and we're ready to go. So let's take a quick look through the dashboard before we start setting up a site. Seems here in the client area, you are prompted to create your first site. We are on the sites tab here. There's no good indication of that, but if I click on that, it just reloads the same page. And then there looks to be a little bit of marketing information from Wordify at the bottom here. We'll come back and create a site in just a minute. Next is the Teams tab. You can see here I've signed up for my account, but we can invite new users pretty easily. We click the Invite a New User button, we put in their email address, their name and last name, and then we can choose their permissions, whether they should get access to billing, if they should be able to see and create new sites, or if we just want them to see certain sites we select for them. I think this is a pretty great feature to be included in your plan, as I don't think it costs any extra to add any more users. I don't do a ton of collaboration, but it is nice to be able to grant access to your account instead of having to do something like share a password or login. Here in the billing, we can see that we have not added any billing yet. There's no credit card on file, and I haven't signed up for any plans just as of yet. I'm sure we'll have to get to that as we add a new site. They have a dedicated tab here for affiliate, which tells you a little bit of information about the affiliate program, and you do have to apply to get access to that, and then you get 300% of the first month's payment with no caps for anybody you send their way. Here under the migrations tab, you can request migrations. We'll probably actually start with this process because it's going to take their support a little bit of time to do a migration for us, but I would love to see how that process works. Go ahead and write down your guess as to how long it will take Wordify to migrate my site once I complete that request. I'm going to show you that later in the video, and I was actually pretty shocked. Before we do that, let's just finish going through the menu here. Next, we have the support tab. There is no form here to just request support, although there is a chatbot here on the side. And if you fill in any information in this chatbot, it does seem to open up a support ticket. So you can use that, or you could just email them here at the support@wordify.com. Now, I'd probably prefer a form right here, but as long as the support's good and answers quickly, which they guarantee that they do, then I'm probably fine sending them an email. Lastly, here at the bottom, we have the option to sign out, change our password, update information about our team profile, our security, where you can turn on 2FA, and then your own profile here. But let's start out by going ahead and requesting a migration. I got this site that I spun up here on Cloudways, and I'm going to request that they migrate this over into my Wordify account. So we'll go back here, go into migrations, and click Add Migration. Now I just need to give them the details about the site. I'll go ahead and fill in the URL, the username, and password, and then we can select details about the new site. For the name, since I use the Simply Cloud template, we'll just go ahead and use that for the site name, and then we can choose our location. Our options are Germany, United Kingdom, United States, or Australia. Now, it doesn't tell you where inside these countries these servers are located, so we're just gonna have to hope that the United States one is a pretty good location for me. Now, we will go into their CDN option here later, and that could help because they do have CDN locations across the world. Now we have our URL for this new site. By default, it's just going to generate a name for you, but we'll just call this simply clouddemo.wordifysites.com. Now we can select the type of site. Here is where we could go ahead and sign up for the WP Infinity resellers, or we could compare these plans. And down here, if we wanted to go ahead and start this account, we could click on this and then hit Add Site. But since we're just demoing this out, I think I want to add this as a free hosting dev site. So you get the option to have these dev sites on your account, which is great for agencies like me where I'm developing sites for clients and I don't want to pay for managed hosting for a website that maybe I'm just tinkering with or is under development. So we'll just go with this free hosting and hit Add Site. Once we do that, we're redirected back to our migrations page where you can see our migration request, the date that it was requested, and the status of pending. I also got a little notification bubble down here in the corner from the chat widget that says they've received my migration request and it's in the queue. So we'll come back to that whenever they finish up. I'm going to go ahead and note down what time that happened so I can see how long it takes for them to actually complete the migration. But let's go ahead and spin up a site of our own. To do that, I'll go back to the Sites tab here and we'll click Add a New Site. We'll call this Demo Site. Again, we'll choose the United States. We'll just leave their temporary URL and we're going to select the free hosting again and hit Add Site. You can see on our Sites tab, we have our Simply Cloud, which is the migration that we're doing, that's being installed, and also this demo site, which we just created, that's also being installed on our server. From what I've seen in doing this in the past, it takes about 2 or 3 minutes for these sites to get installed. So I'll go ahead and pause the video here and pick it up once our demo site is ready for us to access. This actually tells me how spoiled I am using a product like InstaWP, where you click Add a New Site and within about 2 seconds, you're in the back-end dashboard. But this took just about as long as it does on Cloudways, so I'm okay with that. And after just a couple of minutes, that demo site is ready to go, and so is my migration site. Now, the migration hasn't been completed, but the site's ready to go for them to migrate. Now that we got our new site added, let's go ahead and click on the WordPress logo here so we can be taken to the admin. You can see it's given me a default username and password, and we'll go ahead and click Continue to WP Admin. We have to go ahead and type in that username and password. I'm sure this is how they restrict down the temporary development site, so nobody has access unless they have this username or password, which totally makes sense. Go ahead and hit sign in, and it'll take us to the back end of the website. Here we'll go ahead and view the site, and we can see it's just a default install of 2024. Now I do want to test performance on these sites, so I guess I'll have to sign up for a paid plan to get rid of that gated access. But for now, let's just go ahead and jump back into our dashboard. We'll click on the settings button here and see what all we can do with this site. Here in the overview panel, you can see we have all kinds of information about our site, including the location, the URL, the IP address, and how much storage and bandwidth we've used. Down here, we can see our resource usage for the last 30 days. Obviously, this is a brand new site that's never had any traffic, so there's no kind of data there yet. Lastly, we have an update section. Here is the Smart Cache. Now it says that the Smart Cache can be disabled for debugging and development, but it will be automatically re-enabled after 24 hours. So it's basically enforcing the Smart Cache on you. Lastly, you have some configuration here on auto updates in WordPress. For the WordPress updates, you can turn on all updates or minor only, but you're not able to turn those off. Here for the plugin updates, you have just the option to turn plugin auto updates on or off, and those are set to no by default. Let's take a look through the rest of this menu. Under the hosting tab, we have SSH, PHP, domains, backups, and database. Let's take a look at each one of these pages. Here under the SSH and SFTP details, you can get all your details to get into the site that way. On the PHP page, you can see the PHP version and then all the config files, which you can edit from directly here on this screen. On the domains page, you see the temporary domain you get for the development site. Now you can add your own domain by clicking create domain, but you do have to have a paid plan in order to do this. So we won't do that quite yet, although I do think we're going to have to add our paid plan soon. Under backups, we can see we have a list of manual backups and automatic backups. Obviously, this site was just created seconds ago, so no automatic backups have been taken. But if we wanted to create a manual backup of the site, we just click create backup, confirm, and the creation of our backup is now in process. Lastly, we have a database manager where you can go in here and enable the phpMyAdmin and be able to access your database from right here inside the Wordify dashboard. Next is the WordPress menu where we can go into our config and we can see all of our config files here, which we can edit directly from this menu. Under themes, we can manage all the themes on our site. So we can see we have the 2024, 2023, and 2022 themes installed. But if I wanted to delete the 2022 theme, I could just click the delete button here, confirm that choice, and now that theme has been removed from my installation. The same goes here under plugins. We can see all the plugins that are installed on our website. We can delete those, we can disable them, or we can enable them all from this dashboard. We also can click add a plugin and we can add plugins here from the repo. It is pretty neat to be able to have this level of plugin and theme management from your hosting panel, but I don't think it's going to replace something like Manage WP or Main WP where you can manage all your sites in bulk. Here you have to do it on a site-by-site basis. Still, it's pretty nice if a plugin or theme ever messes up, you can log into your hosting panel and go ahead and disable it from here. Next, we have the option for the WP CLI. I don't know the first thing about this, so I won't be demonstrating any of that, but if this is your jam, it's right here inside the dashboard. I did get a pop-up notice about this as soon as I signed in. I think this is one of their newest features and something they're proud of adding. Next, inside the workflow tab, we have the option to clone this site. So if we go in here and click clone, we can see clone WordPress site, and we can clone this site to a new version. So this might be good if you're setting up some kind of blueprint site or starter site that you use as a starting point for any of your sites. You could go ahead and host this here as a development site and then clone it into your account. Now, one thing that's missing from this workflow tab is the ability to set up staging. That must be a paid plan option only. So once we upgrade our account, we'll go back in here and check out the staging options because they work pretty well too. Lastly, here under billing, we can upgrade. This is where we can take this site to one of the paid plans. We can transfer this site. So if you wanted to transfer this over to a client or somebody else, you can put in their email address and name and then transfer the site over to their account. And lastly, we could go to delete if we wanted to delete this site and confirm that we want to delete this out of our account. At this point, I think we've explored everything on the free plan, so I'm going to need to upgrade the account to a paid plan so we can get to the few different areas we weren't able to explore. So here, let's just go ahead and click upgrade. We're going to go ahead and select this WP Infinity, which is the reseller program for $25 a month. Now we do get a 2-week free trial, so I'm going to go ahead and hit upgrade here, and it's going to prompt me to put in my credit card information. I'll go ahead and pause the video and return back once I've got all that added. Now I've gone ahead and added my credit card, so we should be good to go now. If we go into this plans, you can see I have the Infinity plan already set up and then our Dev Sites plan. Let's go back to our Sites tab, and we can see we have our Simply Cloud site, which is in our Dev Sites, and our demo site, which has been upgraded into our Affinity plan. So let's go ahead and go back into the settings here, and we can check the couple of things we weren't able to see before. Here under hosting and domains, if we click create domain, we can now just add our domain in here. I don't have a domain for us to demo, but I have gone through this process before. You add the domain, press confirm, and then you select which domain you want to be your primary domain. It's actually really simple to do. You can also update your SSL, so if you need to renew that SSL, you can do that right here through the panel. The other detail that was only in the Pro plan is the staging environment, so let's go ahead and test that out. Here, I don't have any staging set up, so I'm going to click Add Staging Site. They do their staging inside a subdirectory. By default, it gives it the name WP, but I'm going to call it staging, so it's very clear to us. Now we have the option to disable search engines, so I'm going to go ahead and discourage them by keeping this on the default option, which is yes, and we'll hit confirm. Now the site is pretty small, so I imagine the staging will be spun up pretty quickly here, so we'll give it just a couple minutes. But without even pausing the video, it looks like it's already been created. So our staging site is ready to go. I'll go ahead and click the logo so we can get into the back end of the website. We can see now our site is the domain we chose, but it has the word staging here in a subdirectory, so we know we're on our staging version. So let's just go to the front end of the site. We'll edit the page and we'll change out this headline so we can make some kind of change to push back to live. With that change made, we'll go ahead and hit save. We'll view the site on the front end and we can see this change has been made on the staging version of this site. Let's go ahead and go back into our dashboard and just double check that on the main version of our site, the live version, that change hasn't been pushed to the live version yet. So back here in the staging, you can see that I can go ahead and push this to live by clicking this icon here, and then confirming that I want to go ahead and push this staging site to the live site. Now imagine with such a small site, this isn't going to take very much time. We have a loading icon here, and then we can see that the pushing to live is in progress. So I'll go ahead and pause this until it's ready to go. Now it only took about 15 seconds for this entire site to be pushed to the live version. Of course, it's a very small site, but this was a really painless process, and that can't be said for all hosting companies. Having a good staging setup is very important, and I'm really impressed with just how easy this was. So let's go back to the front end of these sites. You can see our staging site here with the staging subdirectory, and then our live site here. We'll go ahead and refresh this page, and we can see the change we made to our staging site has now been pushed to our live site. So I suppose the next thing I want to do is test the performance of this site. To do that, I'm going to go into a private window, paste in this URL, go into the inspector, and open up my Lighthouse report. I want to keep this on the mobile device, and I want to test the performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO. So we'll go ahead and hit Analyze Page Load. Now we haven't done any kind of optimizations to this theme or this page yet, and out of the box we're getting a 93 in terms of performance. If we go down and look at some of the details in this report, you can see our biggest issue right now is largest contentful paint, which I'm going to guess is this image here. Yeah, in fact, it's saying here that this image is improperly sized, so out of the box a 93 isn't great, but it's not terrible. I think we'll be able to do some better comparisons once they migrate that Simply Cloud site over, and I can test it on my Cloudways server versus the Wordify server. But while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and turn on the CDN and see if that makes a difference. So back into our account here, I'm going to go under the hosting tab and go to CDN. We'll go ahead and create a CDN. This default zone is fine. We'll let it configure WordPress, and we're not going to turn on the $6 a month add-on. So we'll go ahead and hit confirm and wait for the CDN to be installed. And just like that, the CDN has been installed and our WordPress site has been configured. So now inside the CDN panel, we see some more information. Here we can actually purge our CDN. We see our pull zone details, and we see some statistics. And here we have some CDN configurations. I won't mess with any of this right now, but let's go ahead and open this in our incognito window again and see if we notice any difference. I'm going to refresh the site a couple times because it probably will take a little bit of time for all that information to get cached on the CDN, and maybe this isn't a totally fair shot, but let's go ahead and see if we run a new report if anything changes. Remember, we got a 93 for the performance before, so we'll test this again. And now with that change added, we went from a 93 to a 99 by just installing the CDN. Now, keep in mind, that's the free CDN that comes with your Wordify account, and that made a pretty huge difference for not very much work. As far as clicking a button to install a CDN and seeing instant improvements, I'm pretty impressed. Of course, this is just the default WordPress theme, and there's not a whole lot to test here. But later in the video, I'm going to put Wordify up against Cloudways head-to-head to see which one actually gives us better performance on a real-life website. Now, earlier I requested they create a manual backup of the site, but you can see the size, the version, the date the backup was created, and we have a few options here. First, we could download this backup if we wanted to keep it locally. We can restore this backup, or we can delete it. I'm not exactly sure how many manual backups we can keep, but it's nice that we can add these manual backups when we need it, and it's going to go ahead and take daily backups as well. Now back here on the migrations tab, it ended up only taking them about 20 minutes to do the migration, and now it says that the status is ready for testing. Now, I haven't done any of this before, so let's take a look at what happens. I'll go ahead and click the pencil here. We can see the migration details, and then we can see good news, your migration request is ready for testing. Here we can see the temporary URL and the site IP address. Go ahead and click on this now, and we can see this all looks like it came through pretty well. I don't see any glaring issues, nor did I expect any. So let's go back into our panel here and we'll click I have tested my site. And I'm not going to worry about repointing DNS because this isn't a live site anyway. So I'll just go ahead and click the button to finish this migration process. So it looks like I get a notification now that this migration is complete. So that's fantastic. And let's go back into our sites panel. And we can see that the Simply Cloud site is now in my dev sites. And if we go view it on the front end, everything's looking great. Now, in order to compare the performance, I am going to need to move this Simply Cloud site over to my Infinity plan instead of the Dev Sites plan. So let's take a look at how that process works. We'll go in here into the settings cog, we'll go into billing, and we'll click upgrade. Now let's go ahead and upgrade it into our existing plan here, which is our Infinity plan, and we'll hit upgrade. Now, if we go back into our sites, you can see we only have our Infinity plan. The dev plan is completely gone since we don't have any dev sites, and we can go ahead and view the site. Now, it looks like we caused some kind of issue by moving this from our dev account to our production account. So maybe this is a good opportunity to test out the support. We'll go back in here into the Wordify account, and I'm going to try to open a new support ticket by going here to the little live chat widget and click add a question. And I've gone ahead and typed out a message to them, letting them know that I moved the site from my dev plan to my Infinity plan, still using that temporary URL, and now I'm getting a 500 internal server error. I'd let them know that I did ignore the warning about updating my DNS since that was probably part of the problem here. And I'm asking them what I can do to get the site working again, letting them know that I have gone ahead and cleared the cache since that always seems to be the problem. So we're going to go ahead and send this ticket in now, and we'll see how long it takes them to get back to me to help me resolve this issue. And of course, since it's 2024, an AI bot answered me, but it gave me the option to say that helped or talk to a person. So I'm going to click talk to a person. And just about 5 minutes later, I got a response letting me know that everything seemed to be working fine. I just refreshed it on this end and it seems to be working perfectly now. So I would say that's a huge A+ for the support on this one. I think it was probably a fairly easy thing for them to fix, but they've responded really quickly and resolved my issue without any kind of headache. So I guess all there is to do now is test the Cloudways version versus the Wordify version and see if we notice any kind of difference. I haven't done any further optimizations to either one of these setups, so it should be kind of an out-of-the-box comparison. So I've gone ahead and opened both of these versions inside a private window, and I did change the Cloudways one to have the name on the site of Cloudways and the Wordify one to say Wordify, just so it's easier for us to tell. While I was in there, I did check Cloudways does have all its caching on, so that's the Breeze caching and the Varnish caching, and the Wordify version has their default caching on as well. So let's go ahead and go into the Lighthouse test for both of these. We'll go ahead and get this first one going, and then we'll go into the Wordify version and do the same. So by default, the Cloudways version got an 88 in terms of performance, and the Wordify version got a 91, so slightly better. Although I'm going to refresh this and run these reports a couple times and try to see what best score I can get out of these. Every time you run it, you seem to get something a little bit different, and I want to give both of these a fair shot. With a few more tests, I was able to get the Cloudways version up to a 91 as well, but I wasn't able to get the Wordify version any higher. Let's try adding the CDN to this site. I know now that's not a fair comparison anymore, but just to see how we can add one little thing in just a couple clicks to see if that makes a big difference like it did last time. I'll go ahead with all these default settings and we'll wait for the CDN to be installed and configured. But even with multiple tests with the CDN on, I was never able to repeat that 91 score I got originally, so I guess the original 91 from Wordify and the 91 I was able to get with a few retests on Cloudways leaves them at about a tie. Now I can hear you screaming at me through the computer right now saying that
wasn't a very scientific test.
And you're right. All I wanted to do is see how these two different options perform straight out of the box without doing much to them. I have confidence that I could take either one of these with a few different optimizations and maybe even the Perf Matters plugin and get them both to 100 if I wanted to. The idea here was just to see if I'd be gaining or losing anything if I moved from Cloudways to Wordify. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick tour of the Wordify platform. Coming back to it nearly 4 years later, I had some mixed feelings about the UI and the general experience being about the same as I remember it from before. Now don't get me wrong, there's something to be said for companies who aren't trying to reinvent their platform every 6 minutes, but this kind of gives me the feeling that Wordify is slow to change and adapt and grow over time. Looking through their blog, it seems like updates only happen every so often, and it doesn't seem like they're a super active bunch. Now I'm going to chalk that up to being a very small team, which comes with its pros and cons. On my personal account, I had to send in a support request and ended up being connected with one of the co-founders. Now it's pretty cool to be able to connect with somebody that's in charge charge of the company like that, but with that means we're probably not going to get the kinds of rapid updates you'd see from a much bigger company. I also wasn't able to test out any of the security features because I'd probably need more time with the platform to see how all that really works. There's not a ton of information on that on their website, and inside the dashboard, you really don't see too many security settings. Having said all that, I do really like what I see here. The per site pricing actually works really well for me. Knowing exactly what it's going to cost every time I add a new client to my care plan is really helpful in planning. Right now, inside of Cloudways, I have a general idea what it costs me to add a server, but then I have to go and figure out and manage all my resources to make sure I can add a client to an existing server, or if I have to go spin up a new server. I could probably save some money staying with Cloudways and doing it that way, but it takes up a whole lot of extra time. What Wordify does with the $5 for an additional site is just easier on me, and I do value that at this point in my agency. But beyond the pricing, I really love the interface. It's stripped down and easy to use. I can get to everything I need to get to with relative ease. The support answered very quickly and was a much better experience than what I typically have at Cloudways, and I have total confidence I could get this site blazing fast with just a little bit of elbow grease. But does that mean I'm going to move all of my sites over to Wordify? Well, I'm kind of undecided. I'm tempted to move all of my personal sites, about 10 or so of them, over to Wordify to see what it's like to really work with them on an ongoing process, maybe for a couple months. Then I could come back and make that decision for all of my client sites. Now, the thought of migrating 70 or so client sites isn't exciting, but the fact that they were able to complete my migration so quickly, maybe that's less of a hassle than I really think it is. But I'm really curious to hear what you think about this. Do you think this is better than the current hosting setup you have now? Are you tempted to give it a shot? If so, then let me tell you about the deal I was able to secure for you. If you sign up for the Infinity plan and then send an email to Wordify support saying Kyle sent you, you'll get $250 worth of credit to use in the first 60 days of your account. But if you do stick around for a whole year, you'll get an additional 10% bonus. Remember, this deal is only good on the Infinity plan, and it's only valid for the first 20 customers who sign up and send an email saying that Kyle sent you. I would also really love to know what you thought about this style video. I haven't done too many product reviews before, so if you give a thumbs up on this video, I'll take that as a sign that I should do more videos like this. If you want to make sure you catch any of my future videos, go ahead and hit subscribe, and we'll see you then.